Imagine your favorite NBA team not having 50 wins so far in the regular season. Well, it couldn't be the Boston Celtics fans. So if you guys are excited for the Boston Celtics to have reached 50 wins, the first team in the NBA to do so this season, all you guys have to do is like the video, especially if the next thing you guys want is banner 18. I've got two hot topics to discuss here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Allie Barefoot. Number one, I think it's time to give credit where credit's due. We're going to talk about Jaylen Brown and what he's done for the Boston Celtics since the All-Star break. We're also going to talk about Jayson Tatum and how some people are saying maybe he's not doing enough. On the back half of the show, there is one former Boston Celtic legend that has now spoken out about the Celtics' worries in the NBA playoffs and one team that could actually pose a threat, maybe not in the regular season, but definitely in the playoffs. But first, like I said, Jaylen Brown has become the best version of himself. But I am going to start it off with this. I'm a little bit worried that Jaylen Brown is being too good too early. I want Jaylen Brown to be posting these numbers in the playoffs, which he absolutely can. He has the ability to do that. But since they've come back from the All-Star break, he's averaging 28 points per game. He is a machine. The last 5 games he's played have been all 5 games throughout March. He's had 27, 41, a double-double against the reigning NBA champions, all the way back to Golden State Warriors a few weeks ago when he dropped 19 points in 7 minutes, and the starters didn't even play in the second half. Jaylen Brown is daring teams to leave him open at the three-point line. He is driving to the basket more than I have ever seen him do so in his career, and maybe his left hand has gotten just a little bit better. Especially his defense has gotten better. We know Jaylen Brown can score 28 points a game. We've seen that. We know that. However, on defense, I think he's almost an unsung hero. Opponents are shooting 43.1% right now against Jaylen Brown. We know Derek White's MO is blocks. Jayson Tatum loves some good cookies, but Jaylen Brown is doing everything from under the basket to half court, and I think he is nowhere near being stopped. But it's not just me. NBA analyst J.J. Redick says the other guy that's had a great defensive season that has flown completely under the radar is Jaylen Brown. Brown has had a really good defensive season. He's been doing so good in ISOs. He's been good defending the post when he's switched on bigger defenders, which we saw that against the Nuggets. He even said after the game, I thought I should have been on the Joker more than I was. He went on to say, in terms of the advanced stuff on contesting shots, he's a really solid defensive year for Jaylen Brown. I loved how he played against the Denver Nuggets, who I am worried about them in the finals. I'm not going to lie. You should be. You should always fear the reigning NBA champs, but I thought Jaylen Brown held his own, which does give me hopes that maybe he'll have some of that muscle memory when it comes to playoff times, because Jaylen Brown is playing the best basketball of his career right now. Well, it's March 12th, so is it maybe too early to have Jaylen Brown be popping off the way he is night in and night out? And on the other end is Jayson Tatum in a slump. While Jaylen Brown's career stats have skyrocketed and he's making history every other night, Tatum's still doing phenomenal. But I've seen a lot of rumors out there about maybe how Jaylen Brown has become the number one for the Boston Celtics, while Tatum has kind of started to fall into this rut of only scoring the minimum points that he's used to. Well, Joe Mazzulla actually talked about these rumors to Noah Dalzu, who I absolutely adore her reporting on the Celtics file. She said Joe Mazzulla does not think Jayson Tatum is slumping. He had 26, 8, and 5. When Maxey did that, you guys said we couldn't stop him. People are so used to seeing him dominate in a different way, but we have a different team this year with different expectations. And Jayson Tatum has said this from himself all season long about it's not on him to score 30-plus points a game anymore. He's got Porzingis. He's got Drew Holiday. He's got Derek White now, who has become an offensive asset for the Celtics. So it's kind of crazy to me that anybody would ever think 26, 8, and 5 is a Jayson Tatum slump. If he is, my God, he has not even touched his ceiling just yet. But I think the only way Jaylen Brown can be the best player he's ever been is to have Jayson Tatum alongside him and vice versa. The reason why they're the Jays, the reason why they're one of the best duos in the NBA is because they have to spread out the offense, and it makes it really hard to defend the two of them, which Jayson Tatum says we use that to our advantage. He's always talking about his relationship with Jaylen Brown, and recently said, look, everything we do we compete in a good way. I'm pushing him. We play one-on-one after practice. I think the next step for us is feeding off each other more in a game. Do you know how hard it is to guard one person on a team? Even if that person is Steph Curry, it's extremely hard. But now imagine guarding Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's ridiculous. So I want you guys to pick a number one for the Boston Celtics. If you think Jaylen Brown has now become better than Jayson Tatum, you can say that. If you think JT is still the face of the franchise and he will always be better than Jaylen Brown, type JT down below. But if you think the Jays are what make Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown so special, go on ahead and give them both some love. Type JB and JT, which is exactly what I'm going to be typing down below. But we do have one more thing to talk about here on the show, and you're not going to want to miss this because there is an NBA legend that spoke out about his worries about the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. And I'm going to be honest, I've had the same worries. Before I get into that, I need to tell you guys about the number one daily fantasy sports app in North America. Right now, it's PrizePicks. It's super easy to play. I play this every single game day. All you have to do is pick between 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on a player's projected stats, and you can win up to 25 times your money. And as of right now, you can actually win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can now turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, even college hoop entries today on PrizePicks. So the one thing I love about PrizePicks is that they're absolutely not biased. I can pick NBA, I can pick women's college basketball, men's, NHL, MLS, Call of Duty. They have so many categories here, so I like to mix it up. I went on ahead and combined some women's college hoops with the NBA. I've got Taylor Jones, University of Texas, to have more than 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I think this is the best time ever for college basketball in the month of March. So those are my prize picks. All you guys have to do to make your own is just go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use promo code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Let's go on ahead and break down the top 10 in the Eastern Conference standings right now. Of course, the Boston Celtics, who did just hit 50 wins the other night, are still in number one. The Bucks and the Cavaliers have been flirting with that number 2 spot for a couple weeks now. The Knicks are getting back in there with Brunson. The Magic are making their way back up. They just recently beat the New York Knicks. But then you go into 6 through 10. I feel bad for the Sixers right now. I really do. Without Embiid, they are not a top 5 team at all. The Pacers have kind of hit a low point here, but the Heat, the Bulls, and the Hawks are still in the bottom 10 of the Eastern Conference, but they are not teams that you need to rule out, especially the Miami Heat. Paul Pierce went on his podcast, the Paul Pierce podcast, and said the Miami Heat are the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics at any point in the NBA playoffs, which Celtics fans know this better than anybody, especially with the vengeance that this team has from last year in the Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals. So just real quick, I have a question for you guys. If you think the Celtics and the Heat are the biggest rival right now in the NBA, go on ahead and like this video. Paul Pierce made a great point in his podcast saying, you cannot tell me that if there was all the rivalries stacked up on TV to play one another, Celtics and Heat would have the most viewership, and I completely agree. I think they have a lot of stakes right now. They're both great teams. So go on ahead and like this video if you think the Celtics and the Heat rivalry is huge. Because I want to break down what Paul Pierce actually said about the Miami Heat. He said, look, I'm going to go with the Heat always in terms of the toughest contenders for the Celtics in the playoffs. They have swag versus the Celtics. Celtics beat Milwaukee in the playoffs, but Miami, it's just something about them. When April comes around and Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra get their game plan together, the dude turns into something else. They're confident. And we've seen this back and forth and back and forth. 2020, the Heat won. Of course, that was the bubble. 2022, the Celtics won in the Eastern Conference Finals. Believe it or not, both of those finals went into 6 games. Then in 2023, Eastern Conference Finals, the Heat won in a vicious Game 7 after Jayson Tatum hurt his ankle in the first game. However, it is still TBD in 2024. I want to talk about Jimmy Butler, a.k.a. Jimmy Buckets, when it comes to playoff time. What he did against the Boston Celtics last year in the Eastern Conference Finals was incredible. 25 points per game, 8 rebounds, 42% from the field, and 35% from the three-point line. And think about this. This is the biggest stage for the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. You have one more round to reach the finals, and Jimmy Butler is playing his best basketball. That's why I'm worried Jaylen Brown is maybe peaking too early, because can Jaylen Brown keep up the numbers he's producing night in and night out for the next 2 months? I don't know, because I know Jimmy Butler will definitely bring his A game. So I have a question to ask you guys. Do you think Jimmy Butler, a.k.a. Jimmy Buckets, is a problem for the Boston Celtics moving forward? Yes, they are currently ranked number 8 in the Eastern Conference. However, when it comes to the playoffs, they are a completely different team, which is exactly what Paul Pierce is trying to relay the message to all the Boston Celtics fans. You can be number 1, but there's difference when it's a rival game. Jimmy Butler does scare the hell out of me in the playoffs. Go ahead and comment down below why you guys are at it. If you guys enjoyed this video, just hit that like button for me. The Boston Celtics do play the Utah Jazz, and we're going to be live for the Phoenix Suns game on Thursday. So if you guys just are happy to be a Boston Celtics fan, all you guys have to do is like this video.